A lot of people love wheat products, right? Breads, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits, waffles, pancakes, things like that. And so if there is a way that you can actually eat wheat without any side effects at all, and you can have as much as you want, wouldn't that be great? And the answer is yes, there is a type of wheat that you can have as much as you want, and you're going to be really excited about this. Well, I think I'm a little bit sarcastic, but you can have wheat in the form of wheatgrass. That's right, wheatgrass. Well, you're probably not too excited about that, but today I'm going to talk about some really interesting benefits of wheatgrass and what it can do for your health. Now, full disclosure, I do sell wheatgrass juice powder. Okay, I'm just telling you that before I start this video. And secondly, I'm not going to make any claims that consuming wheatgrass juice can do anything for your health, prevent anything, help reduce the risk of any diseases. I just want to explain some of the research, and there's some really interesting things about wheatgrass that I want to share with you. So what is the difference between wheat that you would use in making breads and pastas and things like that versus the wheat and the wheatgrass juice? Well, with all the breads and pastas and cereals and crackers, that is made with the seed of the plant, okay? The grain. And wheatgrass is without the seed. It's the actual plant that the seed grows on. And so you're consuming this in the microgreen phase, which is usually about 7 to 8 to 9 or 10 days. A lot of different opinions about wheatgrass juice, like it's the new age espresso. People use it in different cleansing detox programs. But I think the health of the wheatgrass is dependent on what it's grown on. So if you're going to the health food store and you're buying wheatgrass in trays that's grown on like this fiber coconut or nothing at all, versus it grown on actual soil, I think there's a big difference in nutrition. Also, you have products that are wheatgrass powder products versus wheatgrass juice powder. Very, very different. The wheatgrass juice powder is way more concentrated because it doesn't have any fiber in it. And it takes a tremendous amount of wheatgrass to make just a little bit of that wheatgrass juice powder. And there is several advantages of doing the wheatgrass juice powder because especially if you have irritable bowel, inflammation in your gut, you can't do fiber. I mean, it's pretty bizarre to think celiac disease, right? Which is a severe intestinal inflammatory condition where you're getting destruction of the lining of your colon, comes from gluten, which is in wheat products and other grains. Yet, if you did the wheatgrass juice powder, it would not create that effect because there's no gluten in wheatgrass at all. So that's interesting. It's like opposite ends of the spectrum. The gluten is contained in the grain, which occurs later in the plant's cycle. If you capture a baby plant when it's very small, you avoid any of the grains. But it also means that you avoid a lot of the other things that are bad too, like the anti-nutrients, like phytic acid, which blocks the absorption of certain minerals. So there's very, very low, if any, phytic acid in wheatgrass. But there's a lot in the grain because it's in that bran portion of the seed. Then you also have a great reduction of the tannins, which are also kind of toxic to people. And there is a much, much lower amount of oxalates, which can lead to kidney stones and can create arthritis or inflammation into the body. So with the wheatgrass juice, you have this interesting, very low anti-nutrients, no gluten, okay? It's actually low carb, and you get higher levels of nutrients, okay? Vitamin C, the precursor to vitamin A, beta carotene. You have a lot of the trace minerals, the minerals, and of course that depends on what it's grown on as well. You get the B vitamins, you get folate. And what's interesting, we had our wheatgrass juice powder tested, and there were high levels of B12. Now, first of all, plants don't make B12. So apparently that B12 was created from a microorganism that lives within that plant. Because one of the things that the farm that grows the wheatgrass juice powder that I use, they don't sterilize. So nothing is heated over 106 degrees. So you have microorganisms living that can survive that temperature, and so that can add an additional benefit. There's even 17 amino acids in this wheatgrass juice, but I don't even consume it for the vitamins. I consume it for two other things. One is the chlorophyll, which 70% of wheatgrass juice is chlorophyll. And secondly, for all the phytonutrients, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of phytonutrients in this microgreen and other microgreens that have all sorts of very cool properties, which I'm going to talk about. But first, let me just mention this chlorophyll compound. I don't know if you knew this, but chlorophyll is identical to your own blood, except for one little thing. Instead of iron, it contains magnesium. I mean, it's pretty wild that when someone consumes that green liquid from a plant, they're consuming something that is so close to your blood, but with magnesium. That's pretty wild. And there's also studies that shows that chlorophyll can stimulate the production of your own red blood cells if you have anemia. And it also has the ability to stimulate the blood stem cells as well. But I'm not making any claims that it'll do anything for you. Just read the research on this yourself. Now, let's just talk a little bit about the phytonutrients. There's phytonutrients help to reduce the complications of a lot of different health problems. They have anti-inflammatory properties, antioxidant properties, antimicrobial properties. But the phytonutrients that I want to talk about today relate to a condition that I found some interesting research on, and that's thalassemia. That is a genetic blood disorder where the person is not making enough hemoglobin, which is the protein that carries oxygen in your blood. So it's a type of anemia. There's also some other problems with this disorder. You're not making enough white blood cells, leukocytes, and also you have a deficiency of thrombocytes. So we have low red blood cells, low white blood cells, and low thrombocytes, which actually have to do with the clotting factors. And so the problem is the treatment for this disorder has a lot of side effects. I mean, one of the treatments is like a bone marrow replacement. Other treatments involve bone marrow stimulants, blood transfusions, etc., etc. But there's some alternative treatments that they're trying with some pretty good effectiveness, and that has to do with wheatgrass. And they found through a research experiment, which I'll put down below, that there's something in wheatgrass juice that can increase your white blood cells, that can increase your red blood cells, that can also increase your thrombocytes. And so it's very good for anemia. But I want to mention again, this is just educational. I'm not making any claims it's going to do anything for you at all. Now, it's very, very inexpensive to make your own wheatgrass juice just by growing it. I highly recommend that you grow it in a tray of soil, okay? And it only takes like 7 days to grow it. So you can actually juice your own and use that tray to juice and then take your own shots. That would be a very inexpensive yet super healthy way to get these phytonutrients. And since we're